How about if I just start at the beginning? you could be honest.
Because you know what? They have the sweat equity that went into that memory that they're making with their friends and family. And that's what's important with us. And that's what the I Am Real World's about.
Well, that's a great question. One of the best things about a spring food plot is you get a second chance if it fails.
Chasing Giants with Don Higgins. Brought to you by buyafarm.com, your source for farm, recreational properties, rural homes, and more. By tapping into Don's years of experience, dedication, and commitment, Chasing Giants focuses on the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails. Now, here is Don and co-host Terry Peer.
Welcome to Chasing Giants, episode 27, brought to you by buyafarm.com. The man of the hour, Mr. Don Higgins, is on the line. How you doing, Don?
Good. How are you, Terry?
Good. August 9th. We're getting closer and closer every podcast we get going on. It's not going to be long. We're going to be out in the woods.
Yeah, the summer's slipping away. We'll soon be sitting in trees for long.
I only have about 3 weeks left, and you got about 7 in Illinois. And, man, blink of an eye, it goes by quick. I know you've been busy here the last couple of weeks, too.
Yeah, I ended my summer seminar tour this week. Since the last episode, I was in Ohio and did 1, 2 in Michigan, and then went to Kansas this week for a couple. So I'm glad that's over. I can get my honey-do list done around the farm and home, and hopefully find a giant to hunt this fall.
Yeah, I know the seminar tour was a whirlwind in a couple weeks, but I know that especially when you got to go out to Kansas, you got to our buddy Dwayne Hopkins, our head seedsman, got to go out with you for that. So I know it was probably good for you to get to spend some time with him. Since we didn't have trade shows this year, usually our time to spend with Dwayne is during trade show season, and since we didn't really do any trade shows, we didn't get to spend much time with him. So I know that was probably good.
Yeah. Dwayne's always a wealth of knowledge, but, with Real World, we've always got something in the works that, future products or improving current products or whatever. And so Dwayne's always right in the middle of that. And, we lean on him pretty hard for his knowledge. And traveling to Kansas and back with Dwayne, we got a chance to visit about a whole lot of things. Some of it business, a lot of it not. But
basically, it's a 16-hour captive meeting, and it's 8 hours out there and 8 hours back. So a lot of brainstorming. I know I talked to Dwayne since then. He had a good time. You got to get the twins together, Wes Delks and Josh Pretzer. They're not really twins, but they both act the same and look alike. So
yeah, always good to see Josh. He's a big Real World supporter out in Kansas. And, we got a new distributor out there now. Phillips Seed Farms in Kansas has about, I think they got about 200 dealers under them. And they become a new distributor. Now, that doesn't mean all those 200 dealers are going to be Real World dealers, but they've all got access to Real World products. So we're making a big push out through the Plain States. They've got dealers in not only Kansas, but also Oklahoma, Nebraska, western Iowa, and western Missouri.
I think they might even have one or two in Arkansas, too. I know we get a lot of questions down there of people wanting dealers, and the hard thing for us to do is we're not networked down there. So having somebody like these folks that are already connected, already have those contacts and stores, hopefully next year a lot of people will be able to buy the products closer to home and save those shipping costs. That's our number one goal anyway.
Right. The good thing about Phillips Seed Farms is they've got a distribution network where they use their own trucks. And, if anyone is interested in that region that I just listed, Phillips will set you up. And then their trucks, run routes, I think every 2 weeks. It might even be every week during the busy season. But so they can service those dealers a whole lot better than we can with those trucks running those routes.
So did you get any off-the-wall questions during your seminar tour that just took you out of left field, or was it pretty normal as trade shows and seminars go? Usually you have a good story when you come back, but I don't know if you had one this time.
There wasn't anything really out of the ordinary. I guess one guy in Ohio asked me about the expandable broadheads, and I think I stomped on a few toes on that one. But
well, you did it on Facebook today with the Love Swing tree saddle comment again. So
yeah, I haven't even had a chance to look at the response to that, but I came across that and I couldn't resist.
I think there was about 90 comments within the first hour. So people just got to understand we're having fun, and they miss the point. You put it like the second or third sentence in your post. It's not for us, but I think pretty close to a direct quote. You said, if it works for you and you can accomplish your goals or kill your bucks, more power to you. But the bigger picture here is this industry is full of people that will promote whatever garbage is thrown at them for free or a discount. The overall message in your post was you only recommend, or even talk about products that you would buy yourself. That's what the purpose of your quote was. And yeah, we were poking a little fun. The whole message about tree saddle was started because me and you were poking fun of Wes Delks about it, just to pick on him. But, come on, people. We're just having a little fun. If it works for you, go for it. Having a 6-hour wedgie isn't for me, but whatever. People.
And speaking of Wes and the tree saddle, we told Wes this is a gimmick. It's not going to last. And I don't really care who likes it or not. But you know what? Wes hunted out of that thing for part of October. And by the time the rut came around, he threw his tree saddle in the closet. And there's going to be a whole lot more of them in there and there probably is already. So
some people just gotta learn themselves. I mean, and it's fine. And there's people that like them. Wes was actually Wes hung ladder stands for me in Illinois a few days ago, and he was telling me, his strategy is he's already gone in and prepped all of his trees with steps or sticks, and he's going in, he doesn't have a whole lot of lone wolf stands, but they're so light and so quick to hang. He actually told me he can get up, if the steps are already there, he can get up and get set it in a stand quicker than he was when he was trying the love saddle. But regardless, people got their own method, but people got to lighten up a little bit. We're just having a little fun. The true thing here is, we're not promoting something that we wouldn't buy ourselves, and we got proof behind that. So the comments in there that we're not normal people. They don't have thousands of dollars and thousands of acres, and I'm like, they don't follow us very often if they think that we're hunting 1,200 acre ranches and have unlimited funds to do what we're doing.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that really hurts me is that people start making assumptions about how I hunt. And they have no idea whatsoever. I've killed my first buck on public ground. I've hunted on public ground many years. Since last year, I was hunting on public ground. I've got cameras on public ground and plan to hunt public ground this year. Every piece of ground, every acre of land I've got, I worked to pay for. I made sacrifices. I'm not living in a new house. And for some clown on the internet to start hammering me because he doesn't have it like I've got it, well, you know what? You didn't make the sacrifices I made either. So
they didn't work their tail off. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, you got around 130 acres that of property that you've bought. I have family property that's about 130 acres. I'm not even leasing. I'm not spending $1 of leased property this year. I don't know if you are or not. I don't think you are you? Did you ended up leasing anything?
I've got one piece that I leased.
So we gave up all of our leases. We're not doing that because we didn't feel that they had a return on it. And it's not like we're sitting here getting checks from all of these companies to basically hunt full time. That's the biggest misconception. The people that are in this industry came to this industry with money. Very few people have gotten to where they're full time in this industry. And making a lot of money for it. So all of you all that want to just, not know your facts and start throwing all this junk to us that, we have a golden ticket and can go out and kill a mature buck anytime we want. You guys don't know the half of how hard we work for this.
And the sacrifice, I could be living in a new house, but still I put my money on hunting land. I didn't have new pickup trucks. I didn't have boats and motorcycles and all the other toys that a lot of people have. I sacrificed to have the small farm that I got. And for some nameless, faceless puke on the internet to start bashing me that doesn't even know me, well, I about had a gutful of it.
Yep. And you know what? We're still going to make the comments we are in good fun and
exactly.
not care. So
if you don't like it, just go listen to some of the other people in the hunting industry that don't have the guts to stand up and take a position on anything. I tell it like it is. And, I don't care if some sponsor is going to drop me or not. I don't need a Love Swing sponsor. I'm not making a dime off of them. So, go talk to the people that don't have a minute for you and don't have the guts to take a stand, because they're here to take your money, and that's all they're here for.
Right.
Okay, Rand.
I got you wound up right out of the gate today. That was awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's not you. It's the people that start making assumptions about somebody. It doesn't just happen to me. They do it to everybody. It's their excuse for their own failures and their own lack of success. Because the other guy, he got better than me. No, the other guy probably put a heck of a lot more time into it than you. That's probably the reason for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's better that you didn't read the 60 or 90 comments on Facebook today. But the good thing is, what people don't understand is that when you get on there and act like an idiot and talk out of your butt and about stuff you have no idea or facts behind and start creating these conversations, you're actually helping analytics for us. If you would just skip over, if you really want to hate somebody on social media, you just move on, and you don't like it, you don't comment. The more interaction that goes with different people commenting, the analytics of social media actually look at that as, oh, this is relevant. I'm going to start showing it to other people. So by all means, go ahead and be an idiot, and more people will see it. So have at it.
I'm going to stop.
We'll spend an hour just on this.
Yeah, we could, especially if I'd have read the comments.
That's all right. So what else? Into seminar season, what else you got?
No, I've just been, I've got a lot of cameras, trail cameras that I haven't checked yet that have been out since about the 1st of July. And, the next episode of Chasing Giants, I'm going to do a buck forecast. The last 2 years on my blog, on my website, I've had a buck forecast, basically based on what I've seen on my trail cameras throughout the summer. And the last two have been pretty spot on accurate. And a lot of people have agreed with that said that those were spot on. So I'm going to do that again, but this will be the first time I've done it on a podcast. So I need to get all those cameras checked and really take a look at things over a wide area, here around my home, several counties, before I do that buck forecast. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time checking those cameras here the next week or so. Then I'll be glassing in the evenings, just about every evening. I go sit somewhere or go for a drive trying to find new bucks or look for bucks that I know exist. So
right,
always something to do.
Yep.
Well, how about you, Terry? How's your healing coming with your leg?
Well, I am 3 weeks post-surgery. Some of the therapy that they have me doing is just absolutely brutal. I watched my daughter go through this last year. Hers is a little bit different injury and procedure to fix her than it was mine. And I knew how hard it was on her. Now it makes me feel even worse for her that she had to go through this. But as far as progress, I'm a little bit ahead of schedule as far as range of motion and how much weight I can put on it. Which is not a good thing because I'm still not supposed to walk without crutches, and I'm starting to cheat a little bit. And as I go around the house, and if I'm on flat ground, I tend to set the crutches to the side. If I'm just going from the couch to the kitchen or to the bedroom or something, I'll lock my brace to where it won't bend, and I'll kind of hobble, which I'm not supposed to do. But no pain as far as that goes. But still having trouble getting my quad muscle to wake up. So for some reason after this surgery, basically your whole front muscle in your thigh goes to sleep. And I don't know if it's because of the nerve block or the surgery, the what, or just not using it. But the therapy that they have me right now to try to wake that thing up is, I get pretty sore from it. So, but outside of that, I'm pushing forward as best I can. They still won't let me drive. If you want to know what the worst part about this is still depending on someone to drive me somewhere. That's it's awful having to be that dependent on somebody.
Yeah, that wouldn't be fun at all. How much longer do you think you have to deal with that?
I got another appointment. My next appointment is on Tuesday, and I'll be honest with you. If they say I can't drive this week, I'm gonna start driving a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I will not go out on the interstate, and run 80 miles an hour, but, I can get in my vehicle and drive up the state road to get to work. I'm going into work about 2 to 3 hours a day. That's about as long as I can sit in like a desk chair with my feet down, not have it elevated. I start hurting pretty bad if I don't get it elevated. So I go into work for a few hours a day, come home and work the rest of the day, just so I can have my meetings or check in on what's going on there. So I'm not going to be able to tolerate this too much longer, whether the doctor says to or not. I know I'll probably get people, chewing me on that one, but it's the honest truth. I can't deal with it too much longer.
Yeah.
So.
Well, hopefully it won't be long, and you'll at least be ready before season opens.
Yeah, our season opens the first Saturday of September here in Kentucky, and my goal has always been to be walking without crutches out across that hill by then. So I'm pushing as hard as I can to be able to do that.
Yeah, well, good deal. Hope it happens. I talked to you a little bit this week by text about your cell cam test. You want to tell people about that?
Yeah, so you and I have been trying to use cell cam technology for several years, and to be brutally honest, we've both been disappointed with it. And you can jump in. I don't want to speak for you, but I've tried different brands of them, and I know you've tried different brands of them, and I'm not convinced, number one, that they're reliable. I don't think they take pictures as well, and they don't send pictures when they do take them consistently. And there might be a lot of factors that go into that. But so far, I've tried several brands, you've tried several brands, and we still have not found one that, we're ready to say, this is what I'm going to standardize on. The problem with it is you go and ask somebody, very few people have tried more than 2 brands of these cameras. So you go to somebody and say, well, what do you use? Oh, I use Spy Point. They work great. Well, what have you compared it to? How do you put a regular trail camera on the same post to see how many pictures you're missing? Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, there's no side-by-side because they're expensive. There's some that are at a lower price point. And then you have the data plan, and then you have the method that the picture transfers. And nobody wants to manage all this different stuff. And, it's a big investment on my part. No one has given me these cameras. We do personally know a couple people that work at the cell cam manufacturers. We know the guys at Exodus. I've met the people at Wi-Eye. They know that I'm testing it, but they didn't just send me these cameras. So I mean, I've spent a lot of my own money to acquire these cameras, and there's I just tallied them up. The price that I had a spreadsheet is $1,500 that I spent on 6 cell cams just to put them side by side, and I'm going to put it on the corner of an alfalfa field at the house where I get a lot of side by side traffic, and I'm going to also put 2 standard cameras all on 1 or 2 poles, and I'm going to see which one's the most reliable. Now, I outlined on my social media part of this is a phase 1 test as far as being able to set the camera up, getting it to work out of the box, customer service, that kind of stuff. But when I started seeing problems with other brands was through the winter and the next year. So I'm not even going to make a decision on what I think it is. I can give you phase 1 results, but by no means am I going to standardize on these things, by October and November. My plan is to run them here in Kentucky for probably about 3 to 4 weeks, and then the next time I come up to Illinois, I'll be the ones that I feel are working decent. I'll put them up in Illinois to help me out up there. And I'm just going to live with having 6 different brands for basically this and part of next hunting season until I find one that I really like. And none of them might work. I don't know. But nobody that I know of has ever done this test because of the expense to it. So.
And you had a great point that people will try one brand of camera, and if it takes a picture, well, that's a great camera. And they never see what they're missing.
So,
it doesn't matter to sell camera regular.
Right. So,
I was in the regular test. People were recommending every single brand. I don't think there was a brand that was not recommended.
Right.
And I know some of them are junk because I've used them. And, it's hard to say something's great until you have something to compare it to. Great compared to what?
And, I've gotten messages already. Well, what about this camera? Because I'm only trying 6. And everybody's like, well, it's not a fair test unless you do this camera and this camera. And then look here, people. It's my freaking money. It's $1,500 I've shelled out. You want to go buy me the other camera and send it to my house and I'll put it? Sure, I'll do it. But I picked the 6 that I thought had the most potential. There's other ones that I already have past experience with that I'm not interested in trying anymore. I already know what they get. I'm not buying another one. It's like, it's real easy for people to throw all these comments out when they're not forking out the bill for this thing. And part of this is me trying to help everybody else make a decision. So the 6 that I've chosen are the Browning. They only have one cell camera, so it's the Browning camera. The Spy Point has a couple different ones. I did the Micro S. It's a real small one, and I'm curious about this one because it has a solar panel on it and a built-in lithium battery. My worry on that one is using it in the woods. There's a company in Louisiana called WiseEye that they have some little bit different technology that I'm really curious about. A couple buddies of mine have used them, and the quality of pictures seem to be really, really high on that camera. So I'm really interested in that. The Tacticam Reveal, the reason I'm trying that, Don, is that's a $99 camera.
Right.
So
I wondered about that one.
So that one's got potential just because of the entry price point in it. And then I think you actually got one of the first either prototypes or first release Exodus renders. I'm getting one of those. And then the Stealth Cam Fusion. So each of these I've talked to people that are currently using them, to kind of filter those out. So those 6 are kind of the ones that I'm moving forward to and saying, these are the ones I'm willing to test. Are there 3 or 4 other ones? Yes, but these are the ones I picked because I've had experience with the other ones in the past and I already know what I'm getting there. So, but if you want to argue about it enough, then yeah, send me one. I'll put it in. Right. But $1,500 to help you all out is all I'm willing to invest in this thing. So, good grief. I get back on another rant talking about stupid cell cameras.
Maybe we should have picked a different day to record this podcast.
Hey, speaking of cell cameras, we were talking about this earlier before we recorded. I downloaded, my son went to the farm today. We filled the feeders, I got 2 shooters on my property, small property, and one of them, I've talked about it a little bit before, he doesn't bet on me. But I get pictures of him in daylight hours. And for those of you who don't know, I'm in Kentucky, and, we're getting ready to go into archery season here in just a few weekends. So I'm really trying to study where my best shot at getting a shot of these bucks. And I've never shot a buck in velvet. And if I'm going to shoot one, this one would be a cool one to shoot. But for opening weekend, I got a bunch of cameras on a very small piece of property. And what I started noticing is, if I didn't have this many cameras, I wouldn't know it. This deer is in shooting range of one of my stands probably 4 or 5 out of 7 mornings at daybreak. So, I mean, when the sun comes up, he's going back to his bed, I'm sure. But I have a stand there. And I think it's a great example of people that's preparing for deer season. A lot of people have a target buck that they're looking for. They start making very aggressive, dangerous decisions out of the gate that might hurt their chances a little bit. So I'm going to ask you to just kind of talk a little bit about if you're going to try to hunt a morning in early season, you got to have a foolproof way of getting in and out, because 9 times out of 10, actually 9.9 times out of 10, you're going to ruin your chances trying to get in. And just because you got a daylight picture of them doesn't mean you can hunt them.
That's absolutely right. I won't even hunt a morning in October. And the reason for it is you do more harm than you do good. For every mature buck that you kill on an October morning hunt, you're going to screw up 50. And that's not an exaggeration. You're going to screw up 50 for every one you kill. I'd just as soon wait for an evening hunt. Kill that buck in the evening. It's a whole lot easier to get your stand undetected. You said something about how many days was it? 5 out of 7 that buck was by?
About 5 out of 7, he's within shooting range of one of my stands at daylight.
I'll throw something at you. I bet you that if he was in that stand, he would not have been by there 5 out of 7 days. He might have caught you slipping in the very first morning, and boom, he's gone.
Right. Or you blew 10 does out of the field trying to get in there and push them in, and then he scoots out the other direction.
Uh-huh.
So it's just a reminder. What I'm doing is 15, 16 years ago, I would have said, "Oh, I'm hunting opening morning at that stand here the first Saturday of September. He's in daylight." What I'm trying to do right now is I'm running enough cameras, because I haven't taken all the rest of the cameras to Illinois yet. I'm trying to see where he's coming into the alfalfa field or the food plots, from which direction, based on what wind, to try to predict him a little bit. Now, it might not have any pattern whatsoever based on wind direction, but I even started the chart tonight that he's coming into the alfalfa from the northeast, on this, trying to, and then I'll go back and look at the wind direction, or he's working this side of the field coming back to try to see if that's based on a wind direction, just to give me a little bit more chance to know where he's going to be when I know what the conditions are. I usually tag out in Kentucky in September. But I have not hunted a morning for a long time, and I just know a lot of people, they start getting, very undisciplined is a word you could use. We use that a lot here. They get that target buck, and they say, "Oh, he's there in daylight, I got to be there too," and you'll blow your chances a whole lot quicker trying to do it in the morning. If you do it, you better have a really, really good way to get in and out of there.
I agree 100%. I talked to a young man in Kansas this week when I was out there, and he was showing me a picture of a buck he shot last year in the morning hunt. Nice buck for sure. And I tried to tell him the danger of trying to hunt mornings, and I'm not sure I got through to him. That kid may be ruined for life. He's had it work once, and now he's just said it's going to happen again. And you talk about discipline. A good example here on my farm was Smokey from 2017. I knew it was going to take an afternoon hunt, and I knew it was going to take a northwest wind, and it took 11 days before we had our first northwest wind. I waited 13 years to hunt another 200-inch buck, and season opened, and for 10 days I did not step foot on that farm until the wind was right. And then it was an afternoon hunt. And a lot of guys would have been going to, observation stands or trying to sit back and observe. And I knew what I needed to do, and I knew where I needed to be, but it took a lot of discipline to stay off that farm the first 10 days of season when I knew the buck that I really wanted was right there. Yep. And that's the kind of discipline it takes to do it year after year. You don't get that many chances with a big mature buck. you just can't go bumping them off the properties that you got permission to hunt, because they'll pick up and move.
Right.
And, when he does that, then where are you at? Then you're stuck hunting the next best buck.
And there's
And
always,
if you want to kill the best ones, you better wait till everything's lined up right.
yeah, and then there's always the guys in Kentucky, and who else opens really early? I think Kansas does a mid-September. Maybe Nebraska or Montana opens up early that says, oh, well, our only chance to kill this buck is before the bachelor group busts up. But, okay, the bachelor group busts up and two of the 4 bucks or 3 of the 4 bucks shift and go somewhere else. You're going to bust all 4 of them out of there and not have a chance at any of them. So I was actually talking to one of my buddies at church this morning, and he's a giant. I mean, he is an absolute giant for anywhere, not just Kentucky, for anywhere. And, baseball bat diameter coming out of his head, huge frame, big, tall tines. So, I mean, he's got it all, mass, frame, and tine length. And he is only getting pictures of that deer in the morning. And I told him, I was like, man, I said, you can come over and start taking cameras out of my box, whatever you need to try to figure out where that deer can be hunted in the evenings. And he goes, well, what if I can't figure it out? I'm like, dude, I don't know. Outside of the only thing that's crazy enough that I've ever thought about is if you did have a very comfortable, big enough elevated blind, hunting in the evening and staying in there all night and not getting out. But man, I'd snore so bad the deer would hear me through the night, so it wouldn't work for me.
I know I would, but Dwayne West can testify to that after spending a couple days at the motel with me. But when it comes to hunting those big bucks in the morning, you just don't. There's no room for error.
Right.
I mean, absolutely none. You bust him, it's over. And if he's getting daylight pictures in the morning, that buck cannot. He's not far from where that buck's bedding. It's not
right.
like
it's
the buck's
just a
walking
matter
a mile
of
once the sun comes up.
It's a matter of finding him now. So he's just got to shift his cameras and keep working instead of just trying to do something that's not got good chances at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we were talking about. He's 100% on board. He's a very good hunter, So he knows that he's not going to do it, but I'm happy for him, man. He's buck of a lifetime. He's going to be a dandy. So,
well, I hope he gets it.
Yep. So, but outside of that, my stuff, my bean plot doesn't look real well, but the beans really took off. We finally got some weather with some heat and some rain combination. Soybeans were really thin, really small, but they jumped up over my knees. So I'm going to put some fall plots in here this week, I believe, with some help from some buddies, and get some rain in. That way my fall plots are a little bit going for that opening weekend in September. I know you're going to probably wait till a little bit closer to the end of August, aren't you?
Right. Yeah. The closer I can get to September 1st, the better.
Yep.
I just don't want those plants getting too mature and losing their palatability.
Right. So, all right. Well, that's all I got. You got anything else before we move on to the buyfarm.com property of the week?
Nope. I think we've ranted enough, Terry.
I got some more rants in me. Depends on what kind of questions you bring to the table. I'm wound up tonight, but we'll talk about a good piece of property first, though. Okay.
That sounds good.
Buyafarm.com is your source for farm, recreational properties, rural homes, and more. Now, here is Don Higgins with this week's featured property.
All right. This week's featured property is 220 acres. It's located in Johnson County, Illinois, which is southern Illinois, down in the Shawnee National Forest. It's between Goreville and Vienna, Illinois. The taxes, believe it or not, on 220 acres, the taxes are only $855. But this 220 acres includes 77 acres of open tillable ground. 55 of that is in CRP that's paying $5,256 a year. There's 153 plus acres of woods. There's some mature timber on that. Good building site with rural water. This property is only 49 minutes from Paducah, Kentucky, 1 hour from Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and 27 minutes from Marion, Illinois. You can see more details, photos. I think there's even a video on the buyafarm.com website. If you got questions, you can call Agent Wayne Keller. Wayne's phone number is 618-407-1679. And I'm sure Wayne would be happy to show you this property and answer any questions that you have.
Very cool. These properties, these low tax rates are really surprising to me. So,
well,
go ahead.
In Illinois, if you've got your timber enrolled in a management program, it gets taxed at a lower rate. If it's a recreation property, it's quite a bit higher. But you get a forester to put together a timber management plan, and you get really low taxes, just like a farmer with farm ground. And a lot of times it's not much more than a couple bucks per acre.
I get you.
So
makes sense.
Yeah.
So, all right. So go to buyfarm.com. We appreciate their support. And we appreciate you guys that are considering purchasing property, going to their website, buyfarm.com. The agent on this one you said was Wayne Keller, right?
Yep. Wayne Keller.
All right. So before we go into the questions, though, I got one little sidetrack thing that I want to bring up. I think that we need to officially name Kevin Thayer Mr. Food Plot. Do you got a problem with that?
I don't know who else would qualify or who else would challenge him for that title.
For you guys that haven't gone and liked Kevin's Facebook page, he often makes puts posts in the Whitetail Food Plotters private group on Facebook. But man, while you were doing that, it just popped up on my computer screen, and he's he uses that I think he puts 2 rows of beans in, then leaves one open, then 2 beans rows, and then he built that cultivator that he can drive down and cultivate before he goes in and double crops. For you guys that are looking for strategies about putting in food plots, knowing that you're going to double crop, we have officially named Kevin Thayer as Mr. Food Plot. Go check it out. Really cool video footage and pictures of his soybeans and sunflowers and everything that he puts out. He glasses and videos deer from the back of his yard about every night. So very good learning opportunity for you younger guys looking for ideas on how to put food plots in. So hopefully Kevin won't mind his new nickname.
I don't think he will. He's a great guy. I'm sure he shares his knowledge with a lot of folks. Travels around the Midwest, and he's looking either for a good restaurant to eat at, or he's looking to meet somebody and share something to do with deer hunting. So
he is a food connoisseur.
He's either posting a picture of a food plot, a deer in a food plot, or food.
He's all about the food plot. So Kevin, aka Mr. Food Plot, thanks for those posts, man. I really enjoy watching them. So you got some questions for us tonight?
I picked out 3 questions tonight, and I'm all over the board. I didn't stick with one topic. All 3 of these are totally different.
Okay.
To kind of make this interesting. So I'm going to start. The first one is from Bob Miller from Bay City, Michigan.
Beautiful area,
Bob,
Bay City, Michigan. It's a beautiful area.
Well, Bob actually showed up at one of the seminars that Wes and I did up in Michigan last week.
Oh, very cool.
We got to meet him in person. Great guy. And this is a long one, and it's so long, I'm going to read half of it. We're going to stop and answer, and then I'm going to read the other half.
You don't have a limit on how long the question can be on your website?
I don't, but I might have to put a 500-word limit or something. But that's all right, Bob. Appreciate all your support and you sending in this question. So Bob says, howdy. Couple of questions that I hope are a little more outside the box thinking, so to speak, from things you guys have recently discussed. First one being, understanding size, location, and topography all work together. But for example, let's say the weakest link on a blank property is cover. So we go in and put 100 acres into CRP program for bedding cover, but contract says every 5 years we have to mow it down and let it regrow. Being said, we just wiped out and ruined a complete sanctuary. My question, what are some things we could do before we sign the contract if we want that extra income to help out, but still really want to have as much bedding? Would you strategically plant cedars and pines with some oaks in different parts of it so that when it is mowed, they still have some sort of cover left? Even though invasive, would you plant autumn olive to keep some cover? Maybe some pollinator program? Not sure if you have to mow that or not. What could we establish beforehand so you're not looking at 100 acres of mowed grass to help the deer stay after we just shocked them, so to speak, after we just mowed down their home? That's a great question, Bob. And I'm very familiar with the CRP programs. In fact, one of the things that I do with my consulting clients is if I suggest a CRP planting on their property, I make sure that they get with me and I walk them through that whole step-by-step process. I like to diversify general signups. There's all kinds of different, I guess they call them practices that you can sign up for. I signed up some of my farm just last summer, I think it was, or last fall, but whenever it was, you go through a process and you can pick from all these different programs or practices. It might be tree planting and it might be grass planting, others pollinator, and on and on. Well, the more things that you do, the more points that you get. So, you put in your application and you're awarded a number of points based on that application. And then after all those applications are submitted, there's a deadline. After the deadline, all those applications are submitted. The USD will determine a cutoff point. And anybody who has more points than that cutoff point is accepted in the program. If you're below that, you do not get accepted. This last program, I don't even know where the cutoff point was, but I remember that I had 221 points by the time I signed up, all the different projects on my CRP. When I was at the office asking, how that ranked with some of the other applications they'd seen, they said nobody else, they had not yet seen another application that had reached 200 points, and I was at 221. So I've kind of learned the system a little bit. And so let's say you had 100 acres, as Bob suggested here. You don't want to put the whole 100 acres into just warm season grasses. First of all, you're allowed 10% of that acreage under most programs. Now, what I'm saying here is generalities, which could change or may not be applicable to all CRP programs. But generally, on the general sign-up, you're allowed to put 10% of your acreage into wildlife food plots. So if you had 100 acres, you could put 10 acres into food plots, and you get extra points for doing so. Then you could put some of that acreage into something like pollinator. You get additional points for pollinator, which is exactly what I did. I put the bare minimum that was required to get the points in pollinator program. You could put part of that in a tree program and get extra points. You could plant warm season native grasses instead of cool season grasses and get more points for that. So there's a point system on these CRPs, and the more diverse and the more different practices you can include, the more points you're going to get, and the more likely you are to get accepted. So let's shift gears just a little bit. And Bob talks about the whole 100 acres being in warm season native grasses. You could do that. And I understand what he's talking about. If you do that, then they're going to want you to come in the middle of that contract. And to maintain a good stand of those grasses, they're going to want you to either burn it, disc it, mow it, or something like that. However, if you manage your farm right, you don't have to. You're going to be managing every year instead of just every 5 years like they require. And what I do is on my grass plantings, I divide them into thirds. And so, and you can use like clover fire breaks or whatever to divide those into thirds. So each year I'm burning part of my CRP, but only a third of it. 2/3 of it remains standing, so that there is always cover. You're not just wiping out all the cover in your farm. even after you're burned, 2/3 of your grass is still there. And burning your grass about every third year is ideal anyway. You don't want to burn it every 5 years because you'll get woody vegetation, volunteer tree seedlings and such. You give them 5 years, and a lot of them will get big enough that a fire won't kill them. I like to burn every 2 to 3 years. And then that woody vegetation is small enough that the fire kills it.
So can I ask a
quick?
Can I ask you a quick question, real quick, about that?
Yep. Uh-huh.
And maybe I'm off base, so just tell me to shut up and mind my business, because I don't know near what you do as far as this goes in CRP and all these programs. The thing that I've noticed about your farm is you don't burn everything in 1 year. So I heard you talking about diversity and doing different things for different places. One of the things I think stuck out to me that maybe people don't realize you do is, out of your 3 big native grass fields, you only burn 1 a year and rotate them every 3 years. So even though you burn this field and it's gone, you still have bedding on the property. Is that something that's a valid point here? Because he's talking about 100 acres. You're talking about being diverse, diversifying those into different things. But even in a big field, separating them and putting fire breaks in or whatever, to where you don't just wipe the whole thing out, might be a point to make here too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I was going with all this is the mid-management practices that he's talking about, that they require you every 5 years to come in the middle of that contract. If you're maintaining those, that's not even required. They just want you to maintain a good stand. They don't want it to turn into a brush patch if you guys are supposed to have warm season native grasses. So, they're a little bit flexible. That's more for the people that do nothing. But if someone's serious about habitat like I am and most of our listeners, you're not going to just plant stuff and walk away. And if it's a weed patch, it's a weed patch. And 5 years, you do what you have to get your payment. We're taking a little more interest in it, and we're wanting to create the best habitat possible. And like I said, I walk my consulting clients right through this because I want them to get accepted in the program. So when it comes to filling out that application, that's the big thing. Is you can get a lot more points than the average guy walking in there that has no clue what's going on. I'll throw out that, I worked as a CRP planting contractor for about 20 years, where I planted these native grasses for people on their projects, as well as a CRP tree seedlings and such. So I'm pretty well versed in what it takes to get your farm accepted, if you're working with me on that. But
another reason to pick a consultant.
Do you have anything to add, Terry, before we go to the next part of Bob's question?
Just another reason to pick a consultant that has experience in what you're trying to do. Otherwise, you'll be chasing your tail trying to figure it out. So.
Yep.
All right, let's go to the second one.
All right, second question. Bob says, I understand your logic with killing the doe that has 2 buck fawns, so the bucks are more apt to stay. And I understand that there is no way to know what doe has the best genetics out of your herd. I've read that the doe genes are more dominant and decide what that buck will be by being dominant over the buck's genes. Is this true? And if so, would having a doe with twin buck fawns be a showing trait of herd great genetics? Is there a way, in your opinion, to help identify maybe what doe should stay and what doe should go when culling doe for herd ratio? We take a gamble if we don't shoot that doe with buck fawns, that the bucks could disperse. But we also take a gamble by culling what could possibly be one of the better genetic doe breeders, if that's a trait of good genetics. Elaborating more in depth, if we're not looking at genetics and simply just herd management, what doe should we be targeting? I've heard keep the older, bigger ones around. They've survived X amount of hunting seasons already. They will teach the young how to survive. Then I've heard get rid of the old and in with the new sort of talk. I'm not a doe management guy, but I need to start, and this is the year. So what should I be targeting? Don and Terry, your time is much appreciated. To some, maybe not all, but to some like me, very much. And I appreciate all you guys do and all the knowledge you share. You both are a wealth of knowledge. And what one lacks, the other makes up for. And you guys as a team are phenomenal. you guys deliver each and every week. Thank you. Best regards, Bob. Well, thanks for the kind words, Bob. We certainly appreciate that. And like I said, we appreciate your support and everyone else's. To get onto the topic of calling does, doe genetics, Bob brings up a great point. The captive deer industry has proven that when a buck and a doe breed, the doe has more influence on the male offspring than the buck will. They even have what they call super does in the captive deer industry. Those does can be bred to any buck, and her offspring will be bigger than the sire or the father of those buck fawns. I've heard it said by, I think most of the captive deer breeders that have been doing it a while agree that the doe brings at least 60% to the genetic equation, as far as the fawns goes. In other words, the fawns will receive at least 60% of their antler genetics from their mother instead of their father. I can tell you from experience that a lot of times a doe's sons will reflect her father and what he looked like more than they will what their own father looked like. If you think about it in human terms, what your mom's father looked like goes a lot farther towards what you might look like than your own father. So the doe genetics is something that is very important in creating big bucks. However, in a wild herd, we have absolutely no way to know which does have the best genes and which ones don't. As far as I'm concerned, there's really only one way to pick out the does that you're going to cull from your herd. First of all, it's a doe that gives you a shot. If you got a shot at one, it's time to cull does, you take it. Especially on some of these farms that are really overrun, you shoot every doe you possibly can. You might time your doe harvest, to get away from disturbing your buck hunting. You may do it really early or really late in the season. But the real thing that I key on, with a long archery season to get it done, is I'm really keying on them does that have buck fawns with them. I think that's the best thing you can do. Even if you shoot a doe that has good genes, well, guess what? You've just left a buck fawn or maybe two buck fawns of hers that are a whole lot less likely to disperse. I mean, what good does it do you to have a super duper doe, the greatest genes in the world, if you can rely on all her buck fawns disperse? It's kind of the same principle we talked about fetal programming and the nutrition that you provide your does. What good does all this do if all the buck fawns that are born on your place are dispersing? So, Bob, the answer is anytime you got a chance to shoot a doe with two buck fawns, do it. And if you need to shoot a lot of them, focus on them, even if you only have one. But that's kind of my answer. You have anything to add there, Terry?
You're much more well versed in genetics and all of that than I am. To kind of spin that a little bit elsewhere for Bob, I don't shoot does. I haven't in a long time, unless there's a kid with me or somebody that wants it for the meat. But if you're going to shoot does, if say you put a plan together and say I need to shoot 3 does or 5 does, set your property or plan up to where you can do that away from your stand sites or spots that you're trying to target a buck at. So if you're in a bait state, put a feeder up by the barn, put a small clover patch up by a outbuilding or something up by the road. So when you go there to hunt in the October lull, you don't have a doe that you just poked a hole through going and dying in the middle of your sanctuary or your bedding area where you're going in there tromping to get it out. So I think that it's not really in the question, but that's something that I think people really mess up on when they say we need to shoot does. And that is they don't set up a different plan to shoot does to keep the pressure out of their hot spots where they might, try to kill a mature buck out of. If you're in there hunting and you whack a doe and it runs in, even if it's in the October lull, that you hope you've set your property up to where that mature buck is there. Why do you want a dead doe running in on top of him and then you having to go retrieve it?
Those are fantastic points, Terry. I should have thought of those, but fantastic. When I'm setting up a property for a client in a state where that you can bait, like Ohio, for example, I do a lot of work in Ohio. Those guys can bait over there. And I do exactly what you just suggested. We hadn't even talked about this or rehearsed it, but we'll set up a situation where there's a feeder right outside a building, sometimes right outside the cabin. They shoot them out the windows even.
Right.
But it allows them to kill the does they need to without putting pressure on their property. You know, on my own farm, I've got certain stands where I will never shoot a doe. And, you know, those are the stands that are reserved for the big bucks. And I don't even shoot a cull buck out of those stands. It's the big boys only. But then I got other stands where it's fine to shoot the does. So, yeah, pick your location as well as
if you're in a ditch or
with them.
Yeah, and there's certain spots that you have that might be in a ditch or a creek that, you know, it's a very narrow piece of tree line that the does work back and forth, and it's open ag in every direction. Yeah, poke a hole in a doe there. That's not going to hurt. But if you're hunting an inside corner beside a food plot and a sanctuary and bedding cover, there's no way I'm going to shoot a doe there at any time of the year. You know, it's something I don't think, you know, people say, you know, we're going to put a plan together to kill 10 does off this property to get our ratio. Great. If that's your objective, go the next step and figure out a way to take those same does on your property, but not in your hot spots where you're going to have a shot at killing a giant.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Thanks for the support, Bob. I really appreciate those comments. I wish I could tell you that Don and I practice a lot, but this is just our normal conversation. So,
yeah, you know, something also out is this is our 27th podcast, and we have not edited a single minute of any of them, have we? It's just been talking, and here we go.
Well, we did, but it's because a phone got disconnected or something, and we had to call each other back, and I took a snippet out where you heard us dialing. But everything else is pretty much what you hear is what we are. So there's not any real post editing that goes on here. So
if you ever want people to get your panties in a wad and you got to be politically correct you know, all the time, you're probably in the wrong place, because we're going to be honest, sometimes brutally honest. We've got opinions. You can or you don't have to agree with us. Well, that's fine. We don't expect everybody to agree with us all the time, but political correctness has no place around here. It's what's ruined this country and is ruining it every single day. You're not going to find it here.
But the funny thing is we don't even agree on everything, and we bicker back and forth. It's fun. You know, you got to have a little bit of don't get your panties in a bunch too much. This place is getting this country's getting just way too, I'm offended. So
yeah,
hopefully the next question won't offend me, Don.
I don't think. I think you like this one.
All right, let's
this
hear
next one is from Brian Scott. He's from Cisco, Illinois. Brian says, my question is regarding fall plots. You may have mentioned this before, but is there anything that I can broadcast within the soybeans before the farmer harvests them, so that when the beans are gone, another food source will take its place?
We get this.
Thank you both for your time, and keep up the great work.
Yeah, we get this.
You want to take that one?
We get this one a lot, and I'll be honest with you, we get it so much that I pretty much have a pre-typed response to it, that it makes it easier that I can reply to people. Yes, the mistake that people make is that they choose the wrong type of seed and they do it at the wrong time. So I'll say it two different ways. Your cereal grains like your oats are great for this, and your brassicas are great for this. What people do, though, is they're worried about when it's going to germinate, and if they have a thick stand of beans with a canopy where they can't see, if you walk through there and broadcast, and even if you get that big rain that pushes the seed down to the bottom, that canopy is going to keep sunlight from getting to that seed. So whether it's rain or whether it's the humidity under that canopy, that seed will swell and crack, but without sunlight it will die. So you have to wait, even if it's middle of September, you have to wait until those leaves start changing color with soybeans, so that when you broadcast seed and they crack due to that humidity or dew, sunlight is getting through there to help them grow. The second thing is a lot of people try to double crop like a harvest salad blend, and it's great for 3 of the 4 varieties in there, but the winter peas really need to be set in the soil. So depending on how much rain you get, I actually have experimented with this once and did get winter peas to germinate inside of standing soybeans, but we got torrential downpour where it set the seed. In normal cases, you probably won't get germination. The other thing to take in consideration is if you use like a plot topper blend, which is Nebraska's, where he does run over that with the combine or the tracks or tires. If there's bulbs that have started to develop on your Nebraskas, it will bust those and kill them where he tracks. But most of these ag machines now have such a big swath on it, you're not losing much. But every year I'm double cropping oats and brassicas. So Real World has a winter hardy forage oat, and we have the plot topper blend. I'm going to have to rely on that a whole lot more this year because I had turkeys dig up seed in my soybeans, so mine are really thin. So I'll be doing that one evening this week. I'm doing it a little bit earlier than I should because our Kentucky season opens a little earlier. So make sure if you're going to use oats, I would also make sure you get the right type of oats. Make sure they're a winter hardy oats or a cereal grain. So that's all I got.
You did so good, Terry. I don't think I have anything to add. With the farmer's beans, just look for them beans leaves to start turning yellow. And when you they start turning yellow, that's the time to get that seed out there. And the only other note I would throw out there is a couple of years ago, I bought a instrument called the Extreme Blower, or Extreme Seeder, or Extreme something. It fits on a leaf blower, so you get a gas-powered leaf blower, and this seed attachment fits on it. It blows the seed out the tube, and it's a whole lot. It'll throw it farther than you can with a crank spreader. You can walk through a soybean field with that thing and just blow that seed, 40 feet in each direction.
Right.
Works fantastic. Extreme Blower, I think is what it's called.
Yep.
But it fits on a leaf blower. I'd highly recommend that.
A rule of thumb on that, though, is on your cereal grains, you can put that down as thick as you can. I mean, as much money as you want to put on there, I don't think it really hurts it if you plant it too thick. On your brassicas, you want to make sure you do not overseed that and get that too thick, because those bulbs will not grow and develop the way you need to if you get those stacked in there too thick. But the biggest mistake most people make is they don't wait for those leaves to start turning yellow. They get in a rush thinking they have to get it done, and those seeds will actually germinate. They swell and they crack, but without sunlight they die. And the other thing too, like when you're doing Real World's Gen 2 beans, that's a variety of 4 different beans, so the whole field doesn't turn at one time. You'll start seeing yellow leaves, and then 4 weeks later, you finally get the whole field to maybe transition into yellow. A normal ag field, you talk to that farmer, he's only putting one variety out there. So it's not like you have to wait a long time for you to start getting sunlight once you get those first bean leaves to dry down, because everything is the same group number bean, and it dries all at the same time.
Right.
A great question.
Yeah,
Brian.
it typically does not work good with Real World Gen 2 beans because there's longer season beans in that mix if you got a good stand. If it's a poor stand, one that's been browsed heavy, then yeah, you can do it. But
so
if
Brian,
you got a good stand.
Yep, Brian, go to Mr. Food Plots Facebook page. He just made a post tonight. Kevin Thayer, Mr. Food Plot, and he actually has some great ideas for double cropping. You can learn a lot from Mr. Food Plot. I kind of like the ring of that.
Well, I don't think Kevin will mind either.
I might make him a sign on my CNC machine that says Mr. Food Plot and send it to him.
He's probably going to have so many new Facebook friend requests that he's going to be at his limit.
Yeah, probably. It's all right.
One question left. This one comes from Jacob Sigler of Charleston, Illinois. We know where Charleston, Illinois is at, don't we,
Yes,
Terry?
sir.
It's only about maybe 15 miles at the most from where I live. I know Terry's been through there a lot. But
Yep. They got a Rural
anyway,
King. I love my Rural Kings. We don't have them. Oh, we're getting one in Kentucky, but there's one in Charleston.
Yep, one in Charleston. Jacob says, Don, It seems like every hunter out there is obsessed with every new gadget, technology, bell, and whistle. Native Americans killed game with sticks and stones with no activated carbon moisture wicking camo, no muck boots, no game cameras, no GPS, apps, etc. They knew their prey, they knew the land, and they knew how to hunt. Do you think modern outdoorsmen are losing touch with nature and the reality of what hunting is? It seems like most guys are more concerned with filming themselves and getting pictures for their social media than just enjoying the hunt, the outdoors, and maybe the last real wild thing we have left in modern life. Does any of this concern you? Thanks for the podcast and everything you do. I can't wait to see what giant you kill this year. Wow.
That's a lot to
Jacob,
digest.
you opened a can of worms. We should have maybe started on this one at the beginning because this might have taken the whole podcast.
Well, we're at an hour 5, and I don't care how long it takes us to finish one. This is a great point, and I know we're both going to have something to say on this one.
Jacob, I was blessed whenever I started getting real serious about deer hunting years ago when I was just still a teenager. I met a gentleman named Alan Foster, and Alan Foster was writing articles for North American Whitetail, and he was doing something that I dreamed about. He was killing big bucks on a consistent basis. And I was fortunate to work with Alan on a daily basis, and I spent a lot of time picking this man's brain about big deer. And the thing that strikes me more than anything was his strong ethics. Every conversation practically that we had some kind of ethical overtone to it. I remember Alan was so ethical that he refused to use deer scents because he said that was taking unfair advantage of a buck's biggest defense, his nose. He compared it to a married man who had no intentions of cheating on his wife, having a Playboy model come up and strip down and entice him. And I never forgot that. I mean, we're talking almost 40 years ago. This man was so ethical, he would not use deer scents. And I'm not saying that there's something wrong with deer scents, but I think we've lost, hunting ethics as a whole. The hunting industry has certainly evolved. When I started, there really was no whitetail industry, if you will. The internet didn't exist. All we had was a hunting magazine. And when I started hunting, there was not even North American Whitetail yet. I remember when the first issues of North American Whitetail came out. And as the hunting industry grew, money became involved, and money is the root of all evil. And our society changed as well. Everybody's looking for instant results. They don't want the fast food approach to everything they do. They want it instant. And, a whole industry was born just to create, develop, manufacture products to make deer hunting easier. And what's amazed me is how well the whitetail has adapted, because we've come at it like crazy, and yet hunting seasons have expanded, deer herds have expanded, and no matter what we're able to do, the deer herds are able to take the technology that we throw at them. I am concerned. I just think that we've lost touch with what we really are as hunters. As hunters, we are stewards of the resource. These big game herds have been entrusted to us for a time, for our generation, whatever that might be. And I think it's my opinion that we owe it to the next generation to leave it in better shape than we found it. I'm sure anyone that knows me very well, has followed me very long, has seen me bash the Illinois DNR. And my reason for that is I don't think that they've been the best stewards of the resource in my home state. Now, they've done some things right. They've done some fantastic things. But I think they could have done better. And that could probably be said for every state game management organization or department. But, the other thing is the role models that this industry has picked have done a very poor job promoting conservation and stewardship. Each of us, no matter where we hunt, even if we're hunting public land, we can leave that resource better than we found it. Every time we pull the trigger or release an arrow, we're making a decision that affects that game herd on that property. It just sickens me to go to the woods and find somebody's trash. Gatorade bottles, pop cans, sandwich wrappers, candy bar wrappers, whatever. I see it all the time, especially when I get out on public land. It's like you're too lazy to pick up your trash that you brought out there with you. I mean, good Lord, just put it in your pocket. I think that, and I know this is getting off topic a little bit. You asked about the gadgetry, and yeah, I have concerns there too. Cell cameras. I think Pope and Young and Boone and Crockett recently just made statements, disallowing any game harvested with the use of cellular cameras. And I fully understand that. And you know what? I actually support it. I think at some point the line's got to be drawn, and in my opinion, we've already gone past where the line should be drawn. But it needs to be drawn somewhere. But, I encourage everyone to, ethics, there's laws and ethics. The laws are black and white. The government agencies that are overseeing our wildlife set laws for the benefit of that wildlife, but ethics can change from person to person. My ethics are going to be different than Terry's. I may think that baiting deer is great, and Terry may think it's unethical. But there may be something else that Terry may think it's okay to do deer drives, and I think they ought to be outlawed. So ethics is a personal choice. And I just encourage everyone to, I really get disgusted whenever I hear somebody say, if it's legal, it's okay. No, it's not. That's just the stupidest excuse I've ever heard in my life. Abortion's legal, but it's not okay. I could go right down the list and name off several other things. There's all kinds of things that are legal but are not okay. And there's things that are illegal that are okay. But I'm not ever going to encourage anyone to break the law. But what we got to do as individuals is we got to determine where our own boundaries are. It starts with what's legal, but then we got to take it further. And, that's about the best answer I can come up with. And I'm sure Terry is just chomping at the bit to jump in here, so I'm going to let him have at it.
Well, I'm going to take it a little bit different direction. I'd agree with you that people's interpretation of the ethical side is going to vary. And one of the things we disagree with is crossbow hunting, but I disagree with other people on crossbow hunting. The intent of an archery season is never to be able to harvest a deer at 100 yards with a crossbow. But do I think it's okay that am I pro crossbow? Yes, I am. Don has a little bit different opinion. He's much more conservative on that. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. I agree with Don that we have to draw the line about what we feel is right inside of the law. Where the delicate thing is going to be is even me coming from a manufacturing background, technology is always going to push it. And at some point, you just got to draw the line in where you feel comfortable. It's not going to be long, and bows are going to be another 100 feet per second faster. Releases are going to be more like shooting a trigger. Optics on a bow, there's always going to be the next thing. As far as it relates back to Native Americans, they survived. Where I think we're missing the opportunity is that rules, regulations, and laws are not being made in relationship to the health of the herd and what Don was talking about for the next generation, and it's solely being made based on profit in which the state can bring in from either out-of-state hunters or tags. When the focus becomes revenue instead of the good of the herd and the wildlife for future generations, that's where we're missing the boat. I would also like to comment just real quick as we close where I see the industry is really going sideways. And that is, I made a post about this on the Real World site this morning for Sunday morning with a scripture. And that is, people are worshiping creation instead of the creator. And really think about this as you're getting wound up and focused on a target buck for this upcoming season. We get so enamored with, I have to kill this buck. This buck is the only thing that matters to me, that we lose sight of everything else. And we're willing to screw over a neighbor so the neighbor doesn't get a shot at. We're spending money that should be used somewhere else in our family. We're not spending time with our family. We're doing idiotic stuff because we have now put something in front of a priority that we shouldn't, because we're so enamored with a critter instead of who created that critter. And that's really what you're focusing on here when you're talking about people are wanting to take a selfie with duck lips in a tree stand to promote themselves or something that might get them noticed, versus paying tribute to this wonderful hobby and creation that God has provided to us, and being willing to do what's right in the grand scheme of things for generations to come. You know, it's a pivotal time in this time of year about what we have to make a decision and saying we can either, and there's nothing wrong with putting a plan together to go after a target buck. But when that buck consumes us, big deer make good people really bad. And we've seen it. Don and I have seen this several times, you know, in recent years. Jealousy, envy, you know, almost the scripture talks about the bad things that come out of these opportunities, where it just consumes us to where we just lose focus of what's really important. It's a little bit more of a 30,000-foot view, Jacob, but I really think that my point of view is, yeah, we're always going to bicker and argue about the technology level inside the industry, but I think as a whole we've lost focus of what is really important here, and that is the creator and not the creation.
That's fantastic, Terry. You brought up some great points, and I'm glad you did. That's one of the reasons that I invited you to be the co-host of this podcast, because you always think of things that I don't, and we have our differences, but we respect each other despite our differences. And going back to the tree saddle love swing thing, you know, we started talking about, you know, I don't care what somebody, what's the matter to me if they're hanging, you know, from a tree saddle? I mean, it doesn't. But when we start talking about technology, you know, things that have the ability to increase harvest, we start looking at the possibility that we lose season or lose days in our season. And if we don't draw the line somewhere, especially in the archery seasons, I mean, in Illinois, if the archery harvest is passed. If it hasn't, it's about to surpass the gun season. Well, you can't expect the gun hunters to just keep hunting for 7 days, which is the season they get now, and the bow hunters just keep getting more and more. You know, they've added crossbows and this and that. And, you know, at some point we're going to pay for it with days in our season. And I just don't want to see it come to that. But, you know, it's really an ethical choice. We're each going to have to make those decisions. You can't legislate morality, is what it really boils down to. Either a person's got a good heart and tries to do the right thing, or they don't. I think it starts with laws. I mean, you need some good, well thought out game laws to manage these herds. But at the same time, us as individual hunters need to take some responsibility ourselves and take a close look at what we find acceptable and what we don't.
Yep, I agree. There's things that we don't agree on, and there's people that don't agree with us on things. What kind of gets us fired up is the reason we're doing this podcast is people constantly ask us what we think. Well, when we tell you what we think and you're just going to get offended by it, don't listen.
Well, you know what really irritates me is this industry has got a lot of people with a lot bigger names than what I got that are so politically correct, they won't do anything if there's a chance it'll cost them a penny. If they might lose, you know, one Facebook follower or whatever, they're not going to even touch controversy. And that's why this country is a mess, is because good people are afraid to stand up for what's right. They do nothing. They allow evil to run wild. And I'm not saying there's evil in the hunting industry, but this hunting industry is kind of a reflection of our society today. Nobody is willing to stand up and say this is right and this is wrong.
I disagree. I think there is, what was the term you just used? Evil in the hunting industry? I think it is. There is evil in this industry, and it's Satan working to put the objective of killing something, or the pressure to get a sponsor or be on TV or film a hunt. Look at the year after year these supposed celebrity hunters that get busted for poaching or taking 2 deer. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
There's two of them. There's 2 of them going on right now. One of them keeps pushing his court date out. So the bottom line is there is evil there. Okay, I think that there is, but it falls back to the point in which people have lost the focus. I'm glad that there's an outdoor industry, but when you try to turn this into a me thing instead of a him thing, we've lost our focus from critter or creation instead of the creator.
Yep.
So, what else we got before we sign off here tonight? We're running a little long, but that was a great question, Jacob. I really appreciate the support, and I agree with you.
Yep, that was our last question for this week. Like I said, next episode we're going to do the buck forecast. I'll also throw out something that I don't think has been announced yet, but we hardly ever have a guest. Have we had a guest yet? I don't think we've had a guest yet, have we?
We had the contest winner.
Yeah. We did that, and we had when we did the ATA show.
Yep.
We interviewed some folks from some of our sponsors.
Our buddy Frank Archie set in on one, but we didn't actually let him talk, or he didn't want to talk, I should say.
Well, we've got a guest coming up, and this guy is extremely knowledgeable about deer hunting. It's Dr. Bronson Strickland from Mississippi State Deer Lab. I listened to him on another podcast a while back. And not one of our podcasts, but I forget which one it even was. But we had covered fetal programming on our podcast, and I got a message from someone that said you need to listen to this. He said I really enjoyed your podcast on fetal programming, but you've got to listen to this other podcast. And I listened to it, and it was Dr. Strickland. And I'm telling you what, the guy is extremely knowledgeable. We could all learn a lot from him, and he's agreed to come on.
Okay.
So Terry and I, in the next few weeks, are going to be having him on.
Why don't we plan on just going ahead and telling all of our listeners, this is a great topic of fetal programming. Send those questions, and at the top of the question, just put fetal programming question, and then ask your question. We might be able to save those for when he's on, and just have a full episode of it if we get enough questions for that, and just do a special episode. Everybody's been asking us to do more than one every 2 weeks, so this might be a good opportunity.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one you don't want to miss.
Oh, great. And then probably by the next one, I'll have the first round. I think the last 2 cameras on the cell camera test come in early next week, so I should have some preliminary data we can talk about on that.
Well, that sounds great.
All right. Well, you want to take us out for our sponsors? Thanks for y'all's support, everybody.
Yeah, we're going to wrap it up here for this episode. Be sure to support our sponsors: Buy a Farm, 360 Hunting Blind, Quiet Cat, Vortex, Lone Wolf, Matthews, and Real World Wildlife Products. Hope you enjoyed the episode, everyone. See you next time.